All right, cool. So let's do a quick book review of The Launchpad. This is probably the best book that details the inner workings of Y Combinator. It goes into one of their winter batches. I want to say, let's see. So it was published in 2012. Let's see what batch it covered. I believe it was like 08 or something was the batch it actually covered. 2011. So it was the summer 2011 batch of companies that it covered, and goes through detailed stories of different companies in that batch, interactions with legends like Paul Graham, Sam Altman, and other YC partners, details of how the Y Combinator process works, what they're looking for in companies, what they're encouraging companies to do. And for me, I have 4 kind of key tactical takeaways from the book. Number 1, always be closing. They fund a lot of hackers and developers. And so they're constantly telling these guys to focus on sales and marketing, build at night, build the product features, but you got to always be closing. Growth over development is the second thing, which is very similar. It's like you have to focus on growth. You can't just build the product. You have to focus on growing it. And especially at YC, they're looking for these like parabolic startups that really have that word of mouth aspect to them. So they want to see that, and they want to see these companies really be able to catch fire and grow. So that goes on to the third tactic I had, which is high growth potential is non-negotiable. So they're not interested in steady growth businesses. Y Combinator wants to really hit it out of the park. So they want exponential growth. They want companies that can scale rapidly without requiring excess manual effort, such as one-to-one sales. And then they want word of mouth growth. So that kind of enables this high growth. They really want to see companies that you're going to tell your friend about. They're going to download the app. They're going to start using it. That was really, I was surprised to see that much of a focus on that. I should have known that if I knew more, but really interesting for me to see how much they want these hackers and developers to focus on growth and really look for exponential word of mouth opportunities where they can really scale their sales process. They do things that don't scale in the early days, but if your company ultimately needs somebody to go knock on a door to sell your product, it's not going to be able to get that exponential level that they're looking for. And then the top company stories, I think for me, although I don't believe it was actually in that summer 11 batch. Let me just double check what batch Twitch was in. Interesting to see. I actually use Grok for like information like this. So Grok was part of the winter 2011 batch. Twitch was part of the 2011 winter batch. And so in the early days, this was just in TV. This was in the days when the internet could barely handle streaming. And they basically, my main takeaway here was there were certain companies that were targeting a market before it was mature. And that was such a good strategy because it wasn't really even a viable market yet. Like you couldn't even stream video on the internet at a very high resolution, and it was such a niche idea. But they were eventually able to pivot this and focus on gamers and game streaming and have a huge success with Twitch. And so this was something that I saw that was a theme that some other companies in Y Combinator also did, where they focus on a technology like right at the right time when it actually doesn't really make sense to build that company, but they do the groundwork and they actually become the main player in that space for once the technology gets there and can handle streaming online. So that was really interesting. Second company that I thought was really interesting was Science Exchange. So they're actually with a female founder as well, and they were able to basically, in the academic world, a university might have a certain type of lab equipment that another university doesn't have. And that university wants to run an experiment on your telescope or your microscope or whatever lab equipment you have. And there's a whole kind of outsourcing of experiments market that was going on, and there was no software to coordinate this. So they were able to actually create like the backbone for universities to work together and say, oh, you have this like really powerful MRI machine, or you have this telescope, or you have this chemistry lab. Can you run this experiment for this research project that we're doing? And then they pay to have that done. And so I thought that was a super cool idea, and really cool to see, the story and details of that. Again, there's like eight or nine different companies that they go into detail throughout this on. So really interesting. And then Code Academy was really interesting too. Code Academy, basically the founders were working on several different ideas. Code Academy ended up being their third idea in this batch. So they were like almost getting to demo day where they present their idea and barely had something that they wanted to show. And all they had was like one JavaScript course, like a quick little, 10 little lesson JavaScript course, super basic. And they actually just posted it on Hacker News and got a bunch of coverage. And it turns out a lot of experienced programmers thought, wow, this is really basic. But a lot of people who didn't know programming loved it. And they actually caught fire. And Code Academy was very successful after that. So that was really interesting for me to hear about as well. And I guess I would also say, like, this is a book you should definitely read yourself. Like, the summary doesn't do it justice. There's so many details and tactics in this that are really interesting. And this is a book I'm going to go and read again to really try to soak up the knowledge. There's lots of discussions of one-on-one conversations with Paul Graham, lots of technical decisions, and also like the culture of what these entrepreneurs do. And these guys are all in. Some of these founders are away from their families for those months when they're in this actual batch. The younger ones are obviously just living at the office and grinding away, just like those other ones. But people are making sacrifices and really working hard, iterating and moving fast to see if they can succeed. So really a great book on the inside workings of Y Combinator, and can highly recommend checking it out. So it's my takeaways. Yeah.